The situation at Guantanamo, as we reach the 100th day of the prison-wide hunger strike that the majority of the prisoners are involved in, is obviously, it's a pretty terrible situation that we're at now, and understandably there have been many complaints in recent weeks about the process of force-feeding the prisoners, which medical professionals dictate, should not happen with mentally competent prisoners. The problem, of course, for the United States, and I believe understandably, is that they're not going to stand back and allow prisoners to starve themselves to death, as that would be a terrible PR problem for them. But, really, beyond what's happening in Guantanamo, the bigger picture is that these men are starving themselves to death because they feel so abandoned by all three branches of the United States government, and particularly by President Obama, who promised to close the prison and then found that it was politically difficult to do so. The solution to what's happening at Guantanamo is primarily for there to be action from the administration to pick up and revisit this failed promise with the intention this time of following through on it. So in the short term, by releasing as many as possible of the 86 prisoners who were cleared for release by an interagency task force that the president established soon after taking office in 2009. That's over half of the men held. And two-thirds of those men are from the Yemen. And the problem for these men is that President Obama imposed a ban on releasing them after a failed bomb plot that originated in Yemen that took place at Christmas 2009. So that ban needs to be lifted, and he also needs to tackle Congress, who have imposed restrictions on the release of other prisoners. Now, the good news in recent days is that Attorney General Eric Holder, following up on statements that President Obama made 2 weeks ago, has said that the administration is actively looking for a senior official to take charge of the Guantanamo issue. And yesterday he hinted that there may be releases for the Yemenis on the cards. It's absolutely critical that that happens. For the other men held in Guantanamo, they also are in despair because justice appears to be so elusive. Of the other 80 prisoners who are held, just less than half of them were supposed to face trials, and 46 others were actually designated for indefinite detention without charge or trial. That was by President Obama's task force. And 2 years ago, he issued an executive order making that official. They're being held without charge or trial indefinitely. President Obama at the time promised to deliver periodic reviews of their cases, and those haven't materialized. That's disgraceful. That shows, I believe, his disdain for the prisoners. And that needs to be embarked upon as soon as possible. So, again, this is something that could certainly be the job of somebody appointed by the president if he's unwilling to spend political capital and do it personally in his name. But it needs to happen urgently. And, and I think with 100 days gone of this hunger strike, and clearly the men in such a terrible situation, what we need more than anything, as immediately as possible, is for some of these men to be released.